If you or someone you know is struggling with alcoholism or addiction, do not hesitate to reach out for help. You can find numerous free resources on our website, thebeginagainpodcast.com, and there are tons of resources and support networks available online, in person, or just a phone call away. You don't have to face this challenge alone. Welcome to the Begin Again podcast. I'm your host, Gary Menkes. On the Begin Again podcast, we delve into the inspiring journeys of individuals who have overcome alcoholism and addiction and emerged as true trailblazers in entrepreneurship, business, sports, and beyond. Through authentic, uplifting, and profound conversations with our guests, we aim to shatter the stigma surrounding addiction and demonstrate that recovery can be a catalyst for remarkable success, strength, and resilience. We firmly believe that by listening to these accounts, you will be empowered to unlock your own potential, instigate positive change in your life, and contribute to the creation of a better world. So, get ready to be inspired and embark on your own personal journey of growth with the Begin Again podcast. Welcome back to the Begin Again podcast. I'm your host, Gary Menkes, and joining us today is the founder of Sober is the New Cool, Kim Bellis. Back in 2013, Kim's 15-year-old started having seizures. Like most teenagers, he liked socializing and going to parties, but her son was unable to drink due to his seizures. In an effort to make her son happy, Kim assured him that alcohol wasn't necessary for him to enjoy himself, but she also immediately dawned on her how hypocritical she was being a frequent wine drinker herself. So to prove a point to her son, she stopped drinking for 3 months. And then another 3 months. And after 6 months of sobriety, Kim found herself happier than she had been in quite a while. And what started as an example for her son became something she decided to fully commit to for her son and for herself. Today, Kim has been sober for over 10 years, which is amazing. Congratulations. Sobriety has changed her outlook on life for the better and has improved both her physical and mental well-being. She's the supporter of many nonprofits in New York City, and the National Assembly in Quebec did a declaration of her work during International Recovery Month. Her goal is to show that a sober life is an exhilarating life and a life that anyone can reap the benefits from. Kim, that was fantastic to read. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
The honor's all mine. I was just saying offline here that this is going to be a little different perspective. We're used to hearing some of the war stories and the depths that alcoholism and addiction can take us, but you have a different little spin on it. What started is helping your son. First of all, how's your son doing today?
He's going to be 6 years seizure-free, January 24th.
That's amazing. God bless. That's so good to hear. 6 years, amazing. And so you have a different perspective as far as, what started out another difficult time in your life and your son's life, I'm sure, turned into this amazing brand. Sober is the New Cool. And I see you everywhere, which I think is a testament to how much you put into this. So tell us you have a different viewpoint. Tell us how it started. I mean, I obviously, he had the seizures and you wanted to prove something to him, but what did you learn quickly? 6 months is a quick time.
Well, quite honestly, I guess the whole thing really is a mother's love, because I loved him more than I loved myself. I wouldn't quit drinking for a diet or for just about anything. So yes, in fact, it starts off like very differently, because on the outside looking in, I was the mom that went to school, did the class mom stuff, did all the benefits, for cancer, this, that. So I mean, I looked like I was having a good life. And I'm not going to say I didn't. I did to an extent. But I was living half a life. And when my son got sick, I guess going from playing football and being an active kid 5 nights a week to me being afraid this starts at really when he's 13, because before we got on the meds and everything sorted out, there was a good year and a half in between of doing all this. And before Sober is the New Cool kind of like took a life of its own. And I was depressed. He was depressed. There was a lot of anxiety in the house. And yes, I was drinking a lot more wine than I normally drank, just because, to relax and whatever. And my poor Matthew, after we started the medication, it was like, okay, Matt, go out, have fun, do something. And like I said, when I saw that I'm telling him you don't need wine, and I've got this huge glass. I mean, it was just such a hypocritical moment in my life. It was like a truck hit me, honestly. And at that point, I thought, this is 3 months. I'm going to give 3 months to my son and support him. It was never supposed to be anything more than that. And after 3 months, when he said to me, you know, Mom, now you could be like everybody else again. I got to tell you, it broke my heart. And I said, okay, I'm going to do another 2 months. I mean, it just came out of my mind, you know, my mouth. And I guess the first year I had said to him at one point, I'm sorry you got sick, Matthew, but by you getting sick, I got my life back. Because I didn't realize how much I was missing in my life. Because once I stopped drinking, I had so much more energy. I was so positive. I was trying different things. My mind was open. Sure, I was anxious. I mean, I still had all that insecurity stuff that I've struggled with my whole life, not being good enough, not being this. But I guess because he was sick, it was easy for me to, every time I went somewhere, and I didn't go very many places. Let's call a spade at the beginning. I couldn't really go many places because all of a sudden the red wine was with pasta. The rosé was with sushi. All of a sudden, all these little triggers were in my head. And in my family, we were no strangers to problems with alcohol. So it just kind of continued. And one time, Matthew had some friends coming over, and I heard him say, you know, boys come with their backpacks and the beer and the little bottles and whatever. He said, you guys can't bring that in my house. My mother stopped drinking for me. Because even though he was epileptic, he had trouble saying he couldn't drink. He wanted to be like the boys. He wanted to do everything, you know, the crazy things, talking to girls, standing up on bars, you know, the whole shebang. So I guess he used me and I used him, you know, to get through these moments. And as time went by, I realized, you know, my sister made this logo because there was nothing out there almost 11 years ago talking about sobriety. There was nothing other than Hello Sunday Morning out of Australia. And I thought, this is crazy. So we didn't know what we were doing. We started a Facebook page, and the UK was like, it was like boom. I had messages from every age group, men, women, whatever, because they were much more talkative about this, you know, like they were open. They, you know, their non-alcoholic drinks were much more ahead of the US and Canada. So I guess I was lucky to have all that support. And it just, I mean, this was supposed to be something that started on a kitchen table or kitchen island. And it was supposed to be for my son, to give him something that he could show people and say, okay, I can't drink because, or use it as an excuse. It just happened. And, you know, I guess I realized at that moment, the first year, especially for me, everywhere I went, I was 52 at the time. People were saying everywhere I went, oh, come here, just have a drink with us. Nobody will know. And I thought, wow, if they're doing that with me, how is my son going to survive? I mean, right? And the first year we did end up in a hospital in an ambulance many times because he did kind of drink with his medication, right? Because he wanted to belong.
Sure.
And so, you know, Sober is the New Cool was born, and it just took on a life of its own. And, you know, we make t-shirts and hoodies, I guess, to give people a sense of pride and to give back to the community. And I really wanted people to know, one, you know, that they were good enough, you know, that they had qualities they just forgot they had, that the alcohol or the drugs was just a Band-Aid for something much deeper. And I think because I was 52 and my white hair, I think a lot of people saw me as their mother. And it's easier to take it from somebody else other than your mother and your father when you're doing things you're not supposed to be doing, right?
Absolutely.
And it just, here we are, and it just snowballed. And I think I was lucky. I met the most incredible people on this journey.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Authentic, you know, they're honest. Yes. they're creative. There's so many adjectives you can use. In the last 10 years, I mean, I've met people from Hollywood to India, to all over the world, New Zealand, here, there, I mean, Singapore, and everybody's so accepting of one another, and everybody's so willing to help.
It's so spot on. And I say that all the time, and I haven't been doing this for 10 years, a podcaster, Recover Out Loud. I've always met, amazing people in recovery and people that I love to this day. But when I went down this journey of doing this a little more in public, if you will, Recovery Out Loud, which is a new term to me, the one thing I am still just, I'm flabbergasted, to be honest with you, with the amazing people and communities that I continue to meet in such a short amount of time. And you just described them all perfectly. They're amazing people. They're creators. They're super authentic. They're open. Their lives are pretty much an open book. And the bottom line, they just want to help people. They want to help people realize that they don't have to live that way anymore and that they're not alone. And this is how my podcast, was launched in the brainchild. I don't even know how it started, to be honest with you. This was not on the radar. I say that all the time, but you touched upon a lot of things that you started discovering about yourself in this shorter period of time. And it's things that I totally relate to, like, not good enough. I suffer from that my whole entire life. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not enough, and, part of that grew this big chip on my shoulder for a lot of other reasons that started growing the chip on my shoulder. But, and you talked about the Band-Aid, that alcohol is just a Band-Aid for really, what you're feeling inside to make you, be okay for that time. And I think, put myself in your son's shoes just as a 15-year-old, not with his health issues, but just as a 15-year-old, that's where, I started a little younger before that, maybe a few years younger before that. But those are the real, I guess they were tough years, right? Girls started coming into the picture and sports and all this stuff. I think it's fascinating that you start this, just to help your son, and you're going to do it with him, but you start discovering this sort of real life stuff about yourself. Can we talk about that? I know you had mentioned your family is not, no stranger to alcohol, and that could mean a lot of things. There's heavy drinkers, there's drinkers, and there's disease, there's alcoholism and what have you. And we don't even need to touch upon that. I want to hear about what you started discovering about yourself.
Well, I think that the biggest thing that I discovered was all of a sudden, like at 52, thinking I'm reinventing myself, which I never thought I could do. All the events I did or places I went, I always drank because I was always shy. I was always nervous. I thought I needed that to be able to communicate with people, which now I realize I was not doing a very good job in the least. And I'm much better at it sober. But I think I've always been somebody who kind of saw the world in rose-colored glasses. I always had that kind of outlook. And I guess when I stopped drinking, I realized I wasn't actually that positive after all. It seems to be so much easier to believe the bad things about yourself than the good.
Yeah, agree.
Right? And
yeah.
I guess when I met all these people, and I guess I was like so honored that people would trust me with their stories and their life and their secrets. To me, that was like, wow, how did that happen? And why, they think I'm all that, like, wow, okay, So, and I guess the fact that, like, I've never had daughters, and I've always wanted daughters. I have two sons. And I met a young woman in London, England, and she wanted to, she had her struggles with alcohol. And, we became quite close. And after about, I would say, a year's time, she said to me, would you do a tattoo? And I said, I'm not quite the tattoo type, but more ribbons and bows. But right away, I thought, if that was my son that asked somebody that's a stranger, let's face it, that to do a matching tattoo, wouldn't I want him to have that? And so off I went, and I went to I found a tattoo place in Montreal. She was in London, England, by WhatsApp. We had our phones, and we did this tattoo, which is the infinity sign with a pink heart and a white heart. And because I used to finish my conversations with her saying, I love you infinity plus one, because of all the trauma she had gone through in her life. she didn't feel she had that motherly love. And that's what I used to tell my kids. So the infinity sign, she came up with the design. And we still talk today. We're about 6 years into our relationship. We've had some good times, some bad times, but we're still together. And she sees me as the mom she never had. And I guess she was really the catalyst that made me realize, or every time I kind of thought, okay, I'm not doing enough because there's my insecurity coming back.
Yes.
I'm not making a difference. Why am I doing this? Nobody's really paying attention. And the other thing, when I started this 11 years ago, or 12 almost, people said, you're wasting your time and your money. You cannot say sober and cool in the same sentence. So I had a lot of negativity surrounded by, and you don't have a problem. Why are you doing this? Okay, get over it. Like, move on, come on back, kind of thing.
Right.
So I guess, and every time I seemed to think I was going to give up, I met another young woman or a young father or a grandmother. And it just seemed that it wasn't just young women. It wasn't just young fathers. It was about mental health, because I talked about depression and stuff about my son and me. So I guess I was open about it, and it was like, it is what it is. And if you don't like me, well, I didn't really like that too much, but I guess I took the chance, and here I am.
That's amazing. So, I mean, it's beautiful. It really is. It's one thing to sit back and make some t-shirts, and your sister makes the logo, and it's great. But how do you get to, helping people across, different countries, looking at you as a motherly figure and have this strong, super strong embrace, obviously, and relationship that you're still speaking to this day? You have matching tattoos. How do you make that jump? How does that happen?
You get up early because there's a 5-hour difference. So, but we made the time. And I guess the connection part was, like we'd say, okay, well, what movie do we like? Because we didn't like the same things. There was a real big difference, not only in age, but in what I liked, what she liked. And so and I guess because I never had a daughter, I was so grateful to have that kind of mother-daughter relationship forming. And through her, I found a lot of other young women and young mothers that, I guess because I said I quit for my son, which once again, everybody says you cannot quit for somebody else.
Right.
You can quit for whatever reason you want, as far as I'm concerned. And
Sure. I'm from the camp that, you can't really quit until you want to. Like, things can happen, and you can play victim and you can blame things, but and I'm speaking from my own experience, until I gave up, like I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, that's what it was for me. And that's what I've seen countless other times. I've seen people get arrested and thrown in jail, and all they have to do is stop drinking for a while, and they'll stay out of trouble, and they can't. They don't want to, or they're not ready, or whatever it is. But when they're ready, they're ready. And that's when their life changes. But what I was getting at also, like, you're helping people all over the place, all over the world, literally all over the world, right? And so you're getting these people that are, they're super attracted to you because look at this woman. She stopped drinking for her son, but they're looking at themselves, right? And maybe they want to stop drinking, and they come to you for advice, and you take on this motherly role to them. How is that shift? Like, when did that happen from, like I was saying before, like making t-shirts and this logo, to like, wait a minute, there's something bigger going on here?
I guess, maybe one thing I was always good at was helping people. That's what I love to do forever. And I guess whenever anyone did reach out to me at the beginning, I did take the time. I did make sure they knew they were heard and seen and loved. And, whether they were a man, I have one good friend that, I drove him crazy when he had a slip up. I called him and I texted him and I sent messages day and night, and he's back and he's wonderful. And he's a gift in my life, because he just shows me that there is always hope, and I guess, every time I meet somebody, it's a different circumstance. It's a different thing they're looking for. And what I kind of try and do is find people where they live, or find things, because I don't pretend to be the life coach. I'm not, I don't like that word. I don't like that. I'm not going to pretend I'm a clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever. I'm just someone who cares, and I care enough to try and connect, young women or young men in different communities. I was fortunate enough to meet about 6 years ago a woman called Eve Goldberg. You must look her up if she's from Big Vision. She's absolutely an extraordinary woman. And from the day I listened to her talking, she made me want to be a better person. She really did. And I thought, there's always something that was pushing me to keep going, to reach out, to answer every text message that I could possibly answer. And I'm on my phone from, I'd say, 5 a.m. till 10 at night, probably. And sometimes need be, there's certain people that have access to my personal phone in case they need something. Like if they're going on their first sober vacation, I do WhatsApp and make sure that I'm available, because I think the beginning is hard. And when you don't have support or community around you.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself. I think it's just amazing. But you mentioned reinventing yourself, 52,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm 49 now, and this is all new to me as well. So we're sort of similar spots, I guess I would say, in a funny way. But you like, again, you start making these you start doing what you're doing, making the logo, but now you're helping people, right? And you feel like you're reinventing yourself. You hear the woman, Eve Goldberg, right? Did I have that right?
Yes.
Eve Goldberg. You
Yes.
hear her speak, and you're overcome. You're filled with, I want to be a better person. So there's a transformation, it seems like, happening, like all that's sort of out of your control, that there's a higher purpose for you. When does that like strike you and say, okay, there's something? Because I've had similar feelings of that. It's not about me, but when does it hit you like, wait a minute, there's something bigger at work here, there's a higher purpose for me? When do you find that? Because that's a whole, we could call it reinventing, but that's like a catapult to a whole nother beautiful life at, starting at age 52, which I think is beautiful. Like, I am a big believer, and maybe it's just me being stubborn, that my best years 1000% are ahead of me, like 100%. And it's up to me. I could sit here and I'm sure you have friends too. Like, I'm this age, I'm overweight, and this, it's over. It's like, shut up. It's not over. It can be. And yeah, if you want to live that way, go ahead. But I'm the total opposite, and this has been rejuvenating myself in a way too. But I've been this way for a while. But when does it hit Kim? Like, wait a minute, there's,
I have to say it happens almost every day, because I open my phone or my iPad, or I wake up with the thought of someone or something, and I send a message right away before I get a coffee, before I do anything. And I cannot tell you how many times people have said to me, how did you know I needed this today?
wow.
So there has to be a divine intervention happening here, because I cannot know everybody and everything. And, lately I was in New York City for Break Free New York Fashion Week. And she's fantastic, Alexandra. And we were a bunch of women that finally had met for the first time, and we've been talking online for quite some time. And they were doing runway shows, doing all kinds of different things for the first time, different ages. And in walks a beautiful young woman. And she said, oh my God, I have to talk to you. And she said, when you're talking, I feel like you're talking to me. And I'm not telling this story because she was giving me any compliments. There was 5 other women in the room. One woman gave her a copy of her book. The 2 and 3 young women that were sitting on the couch waiting to do hair and makeup, because she started to share her story that she had, so much anxiety and so many issues that she was dealing with, and how to get through all this. And she said, you give me light, you give me inspiration. And behind me, all of a sudden, these 2 young women almost together say, and almost in tears, thank you for sharing your story, because now we can say how scared we are of what we're doing today and how many problems we have. And the love that was in that room between 7 women, and I'm saying from the age of probably 63, I was probably the oldest, to 21, life-changing for everybody there. for me to be told that I make such a difference in somebody's life and to meet them, not just have this online. The woman who writes the book, Wendy Bayer, she's fantastic. She had 20 copies of her book that day. She had given them all out but one. And she has the last copy to give this young woman. And then these other women that are 20-ish, like young, really young, and starting their recovery and their, their mental health journey. And they made a bond in that room. So how much better could my life get than that? Like, it's impossible.
That's amazing. And this is during Fashion Week, you're saying, right?
Yes.
And so you invited me.
Alexandra had invited me last year, and to walk. And at 10 years sober, I have to tell you, for the 2 weeks before, every single day, I thought, oh my God, if I could only have a vodka. I'm 5'2", I'm not thin, I'm not model material. Oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? And then my sister said to me, this is so much bigger than how tall and slim you are. And I said, you're right. It's about mental health and addiction and acceptance, and no more feeling bad and shame, of being well and trying to get well. Right. And so I figured if I'm telling young women and young people and men, fathers, mothers, grandmothers, whatever, that, oh, they should do this or that, I better walk my talk. So I did it. And it was incredible. And then this year, I got all these other women to be in this fashion show that Hello Lady Cat and Break Free, We Will Break Free, put on. And they couldn't believe it, that they were chosen, that they were doing something. Because Fashion Week, let's call it spade a spade. It's, Victoria's Secret, the models, the tall, slim, whatever. So to be able to do that is quite something. And to do it sober is another thing.
You're lessening the stigma. There's more people coming this year, next year, there's going to be more people than there was this year. That's really what this is all about. I guess in a nutshell, right? Is to lessen the stigma, is to support people out loud. People, you have a voice for people and they're reaching out to you and you're helping so many people, which is just, there's nothing more beautiful than that. And I love speaking to people that are helping people. And tell us what happens with the National Assembly in Quebec.
Well, oh, wow. That was there's another example of kind of thinking in the last little while, oh, it's not working, I'm not reaching enough people, now COVID is over, life is kind of, because during COVID it was full on, and now people are kind of all over the place. And I realized that in Canada, almost every single province had a day or some sort of event for International Recovery Month, except for us in Montreal, Quebec. And so I started talking about it, and it was kind of one of those things that, once again, I really don't know how it happened. It's someone who I know for a long time that was asked to become an M&A, was elected. And when she heard about I was going to do a walk for Recovery Month, that's how it all started. And I had people walking in India. I had people walking Australia. I mean, I had pictures of everybody. So it was a virtual walk once again.
Yeah.
And then someone said, this M&A said, we got to do it in Montreal. And I was nervous because I thought, okay, wait a minute. Virtual is one way because the smoke and mirrors, you can make it look a bit fancier or better than it is. But when it's in your own city, oh my God, how's that going to work? Nobody shows up because people still are afraid to be really out there and open, especially at the beginning. But needless to say, I said, okay, we're going to do it. And we had probably between, I guess, 30 and 50 people. I'm not quite sure, but there was enough people. And we did it at the top of the mountain where it's a lookout. So a lot of people were there. And we had our sign up. And there again, it was just people connecting. And when we were there, she was saying, this is incredible. All these people. We had Portage Canada, that was one of our partners, which does phenomenal work in Canada. She said, well, I've got to, do talk about this. I said, well, we don't have anything in Quebec. Nobody's got a day. Nobody's got a date. She said, that's it. We've got to deal with this, because she is a mother of two teenagers, 21 and 20, tweens, whatever, and a younger one. And she said, it's everywhere. It doesn't discriminate, whether you become an alcoholic or a drug addict. You can come from every social standing, right?
Correct.
So she said, we're going to do it. And there she did it. And so it was very, very nice to know that people around the world have to realize. And I guess, I was known more everywhere else than in my own city, which was a bit of a shame. And I thought, okay, I've got to do things here too. I can't just, so here I am. And now we're just, I guess my biggest problem is saying no. I say yes to everything.
Stage, right?
So, yeah.
I'm sure. What is some of the most regular questions that are asked of you? What's your most, maybe a better way to say, what is your most important message for people?
For me is that I don't want them to wait till they're 60 to know they're enough.
Enough. There's that word again. I love that. That's so important. And I feel like people, are afflicted with the disease of alcoholism or addiction. I think it comes from, at least in my background, childhood trauma. There's so many of us that have dealt with trauma at an early age. And, I think it's Gabor Mate who said, not everyone that is alcoholic or an addict has been a victim of childhood trauma, but actually I flipped it around. Everyone that is an alcoholic or afflicted with addiction, at some point you can put a finger on some sort of childhood trauma. And again, yours is a little different because you kind of, started this for another reason, but it's such an important message and you're such a sort of a different light for all of this, it's wonderful.
And the other thing is I always include, and not only when people buy my t-shirts, I have little white crystal hearts that I send out. And I tell people to hold it in their hands so they know that one, they've got a piece of my heart, and two, they are never, ever alone.
That's beautiful.
And I think that's, the most important thing is connection for most people, whether you're in addiction or not, is feeling like you belong and you're worthy, right?
Absolutely. Connection is such a big part of recovery, and something for me that, I was born, you don't say anything, you keep it all in, you don't share anything with anybody. And the truth is, when I started sharing it and listening to what other alcoholics and people of addiction, told me to do, was when everything changed for me, slowly. So I was the last person to realize also that things were changing for me. Like I was getting better, but I was the last person to realize it. I think it's part of that sort of, what you mentioned so many times today is, the imposter syndrome. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough, even where I'm at now. Like everything you had said, I've had those feelings in a short period of time. Like, I'm not, am I helping someone? I don't know. Is this really, what am I doing here? And then I have one conversation like now, and I'm like, that was great. Like I'm going to keep going. Or you get a DM on the side and say, listen, I heard your podcast and, thank you. I could relate to everything you had said, and, now I have relationships across the globe, but again, the mantra here on this podcast is to help one person, just help one person today. And I know you're going to help one person when this airs, and I can't wait for it to air. So where can people find you though, Kim? Where should we get all your inspiration? Where can we get you?
So I have a Sober is the New Cool with a period in between each word on Instagram. So sober.is.the.new.com. Cool. And I've got a website, www.soberisthenewcool.ca. Our products are available and we give back. This is no money making t-shirt, hoodie thing. I give away some every year to pay it forward to someone that really is starting over or doesn't have the means. So we have ambassadors all over the world, because at least somebody can go have coffee with somebody else. So I have a lot of young women in the UK that Walking the Straight Line gave me that idea. She said, you can't do it all. Come on, give us some work to do. So it is amazing. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, and it's always Sober is the New Cool. And I'm here. And if I can't help you, I will promise to find somebody who can. That's for sure.
Well, that's coming through quite clearly, Kim, for sure. And what's in the future? Any plans in the near future? Any speaking engagements? Anything big coming up?
Well, Fashion Week is coming again in February, so that's going to be another there is one law that they were trying to pass in New York that still has not passed. It's called Daniel's Law, which was what it was all about last year, to make sure that a mental health expert arrives on the scene to de-escalate the situation before the police or etc.
Yes.
So we're still working on that. Well, she is anyways, and I'm just trying to help her. And, basically, whenever I'm asked to do something, I just say yes. So 2024, I think, is going to be quite interesting, and the sky's the limit, I think, because there's a lot of work left to be done, and we need everybody to pitch in. It's not one person that's like, just before this, I had a Sober Girls Guide, Jessica, that it was on my live on Instagram. And she's like 40-ish, or 30-ish, sorry.
Right.
And she's a light to young women, and she's doing something which I think is extraordinary. It's called 30 for 30, which is the month of December. Never mind dry January. She is there for every young woman for the month of December to get through December. And then they get to decide on the 31st of December how they want to start their year after they've achieved all these goals and had support. So it's changing. And I think, there's a lot of people doing great work, and we have to stick together.
Couldn't agree more. There can't be enough of us. I had said that to some other friends, other podcasters, that we're in a place there can't be enough of us, right? The more people there are, the more people we can help. And this is a never ending battle for sure. But you know what? Each day the stigma is getting less than just a little bit, and people like yourself with an amazing message and a beautiful message of helping people is, there's nothing better than that. It's nothing better than to sit and talk with someone like yourself. But you do have to promise me, I know we'll stay in touch after this, but when you do come back to New York, we need to meet up for a coffee for sure.
Absolutely. I'm going to be there the week of February 12th. But I must say thank you for your podcast, because people listen to podcasts. It's incredible how many people are loving podcasts right now. And, that takes away their shame by you talking to other people and allowing your story also to be shared. Because without that, if you don't, then nobody else will, right? So Thank you.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much. Well, Kim, it's been a pleasure. We can keep going. I know you're a busy woman, but I really appreciate your time, and I really more so appreciate meeting you and staying in touch. I say this all the time that, I'm big on keeping relationships up. And so you and I have been DMing a lot lately on the side, which is perfect. And, it really is. It's a privilege, and it's a blessing to be on the same team as you. And I love all that you're doing, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Well, you're stuck with me now. So there you go.
Deal. Sounds like a deal.
And I wish you all the best for the holidays and the new year coming, and to everybody that's listening.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, and right back at you. We all feel the same way for you. We wish you have a wonderful holiday and a happy and a healthy, and stay busy and keep smiling and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Take care now. Thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode of the Begin Again podcast. We sincerely appreciate your time and support. We hope that today's conversation has ignited a spark within you, affirming that recovery is not only attainable, but can also be a wellspring of strength and resilience. Our ultimate goal is to make a difference in someone's life every single day. By sharing these stories of redemption, we strive to empower you and inspire you to unlock your fullest potential, facilitate positive transformations, and contribute to creating a better future for yourself, for your loved ones, and the world at large. If you know someone who could benefit from listening to our show, please share it with them. And if you resonate with our mission and feel compelled to do so, we would greatly appreciate your support through a 5-star review, following us on Instagram, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, The Begin Again Podcast. The more positive reviews we receive and the wider our message spreads, the greater our collective ability to help others realize that change is possible in their own lives. Thank you once again for being a part of our community. May you be blessed on your own journey of personal growth and transformation.